Is it up yet or?
Yep.
Okay.
Yay, it's working. It's going to be so hard for me to not stare over here.
Oh, there it is.
Is it happening?
Yep.
Is it working? Hi, everybody. I'm going to have to make a concerted effort to not stare at
the
this.
cam?
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's a long delay.
Is there really?
Say again?
Hi.
Probably like 15 seconds.
Oh, yay. Okay, yeah, there's some people here. We're just going to chill out for a minute and let some more people filter in and just like chill out. But hi, welcome to the stream. I'm super excited. If you manage to find this and you don't know what's going on, my name is Mickey. I am a therapist. I talk about therapist-y things. And we're doing a Q&A, like a live Q&A to celebrate hitting 10,000 subscribers. So yeah, that's what we're doing. Oh, hi, Tara. Hi, everybody. Oh my gosh, how fun. Love this. Well, like I said, we're just going to chill out for a minute and let some more people filter in. If you guys have questions, now is a good time to put them in the chat. My lovely husband is sitting over there, and I'm going to have him feed me questions so that I'm not doing this the whole time. Oh, I forgot. Yes, I forgot. I genuinely went to the Dollar Tree and I bought a party hat. I would just rip the bag open, baby. Loud noise. Sorry. Sir.
It didn't make it.
Look, so I went and I just broke it. We might need another one.
That can't be.
It's a pack of like 12. I went to Dollar Tree and I bought party hats. And they did not have the ones that are, this one's all Schwecko. I mean, I guess they're from Dollar Tree, to be fair. But these have Legos on them. So, like, could be worse. Also, fair warning, I normally cut the burps out of all of my videos, but I am a burpy lady, so there will for sure be burps on this live stream. Sorry about it. All right, let me see if I can figure out how to get this on my head. Hi, everybody. Oh my gosh, there's so many people. Oh, I'm so excited. Okay. Do you want to feed me questions while I try and strap this onto my head? This is for sure going to snap and hit my face. Did that happen to you ever as a kid?
No.
If this has ever happened to you as a child, put that in the chat, because I was always the kid who would go to put the party hat on and then the elastic would snap and just smack the fuck out of my face. And I'm experiencing traumatic flashbacks. See, this is dangerous.
This is stressful to watch.
It's stressing me out. And it's also deeply uncomfortable. Hi, another burpy lady. Okay, yeah, I'm terrified of this elastic. We are going to put this on in a different way. All right, feed me questions.
All right. So the first question comes from Starbeam. Any tips for new therapists?
Ooh, yes, all of the tips. Honestly, the best advice that I can give you if you're a new therapist is, first of all, to be open to learning, but second of all, to trust yourself. One of my favorite pieces of research that I found when I was a new therapist talked about how the relationship between a client and the therapist is the most effective predictor of whether or not that client will make meaningful change. And like experience the long-lasting positive effects of therapy. It's not about whether you're the most educated, most highly qualified, most experienced therapist in the room. It's about whether you're connecting with that person as another human being. So if you're able to do that, then your client is going to experience like a lot of benefits from that. So lean into that. Be yourself, be normal. People obviously seem to really vibe with therapists who are normal and are, very much people. And so bring that into the room. Obviously, it's important to be mindful of self-disclosure and to not make it about you, but it is okay for you to talk about, yourself as a human being sometimes. I hope that helps.
Next.
Yeah.
Okay. So the next question I got. Also, Yagoro Nick said they made the forking bull shirt. What does it say? Oh, the forking. Where is it? Forking shirt balls.
Shirt balls. That's what it is.
Yes. What made you decide to become a therapist?
So first of all, thank you. A lot of you actually have noticed the artwork. This is my wall of shitty art. There's more of it coming. I do this as like a self-care activity, but yeah, the shitty artwork is all like most of it anyways is based on like different fandoms and interests that I have. So that is definitely from the good place. There's a couple like Portlandia ones up here, some Jenna Julian stuff, but anyways, what was the question? I already forgot. I'm
The
sorry.
question was,
Sorry. Did we lose it?
no.
What made me want to become a therapist? Yes. Okay.
That's a fun one.
So yeah, I've talked about this briefly in a Q&A video that we did like 100 years ago. But when I was in college, I initially was going to school for pharmacy. I thought that I was going to be a doctor, which is hilarious considering that I failed math twice in high school. And it's just like miserable at math and science and homework and like the whole thing. So I was going to college to be a pharmacist. And my first semester, I took 18 credit hours of almost exclusively math and science. And like by the end of first semester, I was like ready to quit college and just like call it good. I was like, this is not for me. I'm bad at school. I'm awful at this. This is just like not fun. As it turns out, that's not the case. I am actually good at school. I'm just really bad at math and science. So there was a night where I had like kind of reached, like up to here and I was like ready to be done. And I was like, okay, let me see if I can find like a Hail Mary and just like really try and pull like a rabbit out of the hat kind of a situation. So I got on my laptop and I looked through the ASU major booklet and I filtered it by the math requirements because I was like, what have I already met the math requirements for so that I never have to take math or science ever again? And I saw social work on there and I was like, what's that? That seems easy. I looked at all of the required classes and I was like, this is a fucking joke. I can do this. And I knew a girl who was also a social work major. So I feel bad. I should probably apologize to her. But I like cornered her after one of our classes together and I was like, hey, I have questions for you. So I asked her, like, what is that? Like, what does that mean? What can you do with social work? So she kind of explained it to me. It's a very broad field. You can do lots of different things with it. But what I heard was it's easy. You can do it. And I was like, sick. Awesome. Thanks. So I talked to my counselor about it and I was like, yeah, hi, we really need to change my major. So we did. It was actually very easy. The whole process from start to finish, from like, meltdown to like, I have a new major was honest to God, probably 72 hours. And then as I sort of went through the program, that was my bachelor's degree. As I went through my bachelor's degree, I realized that you can be a therapist with a social work degree. Because initially I was like, oh, I'll like work for CPS or DCS or whatever. And then as I learned more about the field, I was like, wait, I can do like one-on-one work with people. I can actually like be in the shit and like, not have to work with children either. So yeah. And then I went to grad school and focused on individual therapy for adults. And like the rest is history, I guess. I hope that answers your question. I know that's kind of long-winded, but I guess that's what we're here for.
Ready for the next one?
Yeah.
Did I bring your water in here?
Yeah, it's under my chair.
Oh, okay. All right, cool. Our next question comes from Nathan James.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever gotten secondhand embarrassment from something told to you in a therapy session?
Honestly, okay, so people wonder about this stuff a lot. Like if my clients do stuff that's like really weird or embarrassing, or if I'm ever like, shocked or like weirded out by the things that my clients tell me. And like, not really. Obviously, I can empathize with the feeling of embarrassment. Like clients have told me lots of stories about embarrassing moments that they've had or things that felt really shameful for them. But like, I'm trying to think if anyone has ever told me something that I was like, ooh, and like had that sort of secondhand cringe thing. And like, I don't really think I've ever experienced that, mostly because usually like when someone tells you an embarrassing story or like something that's really shameful for them, they give you all of the context for that and like why they did that, where that came from. Sorry, I told y'all I have burps. I'm drinking gas station coffee, so like that'll do that to you. But yeah, they give you like all of the context and like the behind the scenes explanation. And so when someone's telling me something that's really embarrassing, I'm like, yeah, no, definitely. Okay. Like I see why you did that. Like I get that. And honestly, like I haven't really heard anything that was really wild or out of left field. Most of the embarrassing stories that I've heard are things that I'm like, yeah, no, I would do that too. Like I can very much see myself doing something similar. So it doesn't really seem that way, I guess. Y'all are like blowing up the chat. Thank you for being so active. I appreciate this.
All right.
Can we have another question? Yes.
Okay, so this one's from Abby Grace Q.
Hi, Abby.
How to be supportive of someone's feelings without giving unsolicited advice or pressure?
Okay, so this one is kind of hard. The sort of answer that you're not really looking for is that over time you will get better at this, but it is very much a skill that we have to develop over time. One of the best things that we can do is to notice when we have that like feeling. Like for me, I like feel it in like my mouth and my throat where like the words want to come out of my mouth where I want to fix it. There's a therapy modality that calls this the writing reflex. It's this reflex that we all have when somebody tells you something that's wrong that you're like, oh, I can fix it. Or like, this happened to me, so I know how to help you. And so like, you should just do this. Don't do that. Basically just notice that that's happening and like swallow those words, put those words back in your mouth. And be mindful of what that person is actually asking you for. So one of the things you can actually do is ask the person like, hey, are you looking for me to help you or to give you advice? Or do you just want space to vent? And if they just need space to vent, they'll probably tell you that. And the way that I explain it to my clients when they're trying to express to a loved one that they just need that empathy and that validation is to tell that person, like, I just need you to make sympathetic noises at me. I say this to my husband sometimes where I'm like, I just need the ums and the ahs and the, oh, I'm so sorry. And like, I just want noise. I just want you to be like looking at me and checked in with me and like, validate like, oh yeah, wow. Oh, that's awful. Like I would feel the same way. Wow. That's super annoying. I'm so sorry that happened. That's really frustrating. Like all of those sort of cliche phrases, like they're cliche for a reason because they're useful and they're helpful. And ultimately too, I think it's important to give yourself some space and like some credit, because they're not looking for you to have the perfect words or to have the most like life-altering phrase. Ultimately, they're just looking for you to be present with them. And so if you say the wrong thing or you don't know what to say, like just be honest about that. Like, I don't really know what to say. Like, that sounds shitty. Yeah, like I'm here for that. I get that. I think a lot of times too, people get worked up in this feeling of like needing to have the perfect words. And like, rarely is that what people actually need from you. I hope that helps.
Cool.
Thanks for all of the questions, guys. Like, this is fun. I was nervous that I wasn't going to have a lot of questions, and I'm excited that you guys are like being vocal. All right, give me another one. This is fun.
This one comes from Honeycomb Taurus. Any tips for someone who wants to take psychology for GCSE and maybe A levels?
I don't know what GCSE means. Can we Google that? What does that mean? My experience with school was very much like straight through, and I only went to ASU. So I don't really have a lot of
general certificate of secondary education.
Oh, okay. So that must be like some
England, Wales, and Northern Ireland. Okay, so this is probably.
I had a feeling it was an international thing.
Look, we're learning things together.
Good for us. Thanks for teaching us things, guys. Yeah, okay. So obviously I can't really speak to the education system in other countries. But if you're looking for tips in terms of taking psychology, one of the best things that I did in my undergrad and my graduate program was to seek resources outside of the classroom. One of my favorite things to do when shit at my internship was slow was to just go to the used bookstore and peruse the psychology section. Because even if you're finding literature that is like shitty, like I definitely bought a few books that I was like, wait, this is terrible advice. That's still useful because A, it's important to know what's out there. But B, it's impossible for your professors and your educators to cover every single modality, every single approach, and to like really give that the full context and like discussion that it really deserves. So doing a little bit of exploration on your own time, if you have time and space for that, if that's a feasible option for you, can be really helpful. That was one of the ways that I found a therapy modality that like really vibes with me, was just by looking through the psychology section at the used bookstore. Also, one of the most helpful tips that somebody gave me when I was doing my clinical internship in grad school was to go to the bookstore and look through the self-help section, look through the self-help podcast tab on Spotify, look through all of the relevant self-help resources, and, you know, take note, because those are the things that your clients are consuming before they come to meet with you. And so it's helpful to know like what kind of advice is out there. Like Brene Brown is a big one. And I just love Brene Brown because like I'm a simp for Brene Brown, but like her self-help stuff is really prevalent, and a lot of people watch and listen to that. So it, you know, is helpful to know what kind of messaging is being put out there, especially if it's fucking bad advice. People like the holistic psychologist, you know, and other like self-help resources that aren't using evidence-based information. It's important to know that that stuff is out there and to kind of have some exposure to that, because if your client brings that into the room and you don't know, then you can't really like effectively debunk that, I guess. But yeah, I guess just like doing some research and exploration of the literature and the resources outside of school, because while the program is incredibly useful and while you will absolutely learn a shitload of stuff when you are in college, there's like a whole world of psychology and mental health stuff out there that is also continuing to evolve. There's a whole bunch of new stuff that I did not fucking learn about in grad school that I'm having to learn about on my own time. So, I just saw a comment that said fellow Tucson in here. Oh my gosh, hi. That's so fun. In case you guys didn't know, I live in Tucson.
Real quick, just from your girl, Nick.
Yeah.
Wait, hold on. Oh, no, they saw. Okay, anyways. They just wanted you to explain what LMSW is real quick.
Oh, yeah.
Just to clarify.
So LMSW stands for Licensed Master Social Worker. In the state of Arizona, that's like the alphabet soup that's at the end of my name. Basically, what that means is that I have a master's degree in social work and I'm licensed in the state of Arizona. The acronyms are different. In the United States, the acronyms are different for all different states. If you see somebody who has SW in the alphabet soup at the end of their name, that means that they're a social worker. If you see somebody who has PC, that stands for professional counselor. MHC stands for mental health counselor. There's like so many different alphabet soups. Mine just means that I'm a social worker. So my degree is in social work. I have a license with the state of Arizona, like I said. And that's like just my particular approach. So like, I'm not a psychologist. I am not a psychiatrist. I don't know shit all about medication. I did not go to school for counseling. I went to school for social work. So.
Okay, so this next one, there's some couple of questions that are similar.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to call them out. So Rib Scout 103, 109. And then Kristen and Natalie Kaleva.
Okay.
So starting with Rib Scout, I just wanted to say I thought this is nice. You inspired me to apply to Masters of Mental Health Counseling in the fall. And then their question is, so their question is, what if you don't connect with the clients? And then Kristen says, I have my first session with a therapist this weekend. Yeah. I'm really anxious about and kind of thinking about ghosting my therapist. Any advice? And then Natalie says, what can you advise someone that's really nervous to have their first session? Okay. So I thought you could. Kind of all related. Yes.
So for me, like from the therapist perspective, this has happened a couple of times where I had an intake session with a client and I was like, ooh, I don't know if we're a fit. And this is not to say that I thought they were bad people or that I disliked them as human beings, but just that I wasn't sure if we were going to vibe. I talked about this earlier. For those of you who weren't here, one of the best predictors of a client's progress in therapy is the therapeutic relationship. So basically, whether the therapist and the client are like vibing and like get along. So that's always concerning when that happens. But I will say one of the like best learning, or some of the best learning experiences that I have had are when, supervisors and mentors of mine have told me, like, go back in there, do it again, give it like a 3-session trial period and see how it goes. Because that first session is awkward. And like, I know that that's not what people really want to hear. It's not that it's going to be excruciating. It should never be painful. It should never be shaming or like traumatic, but like, it's kind of like a first date. Not that you should date your therapist. That's not fucking appropriate. Don't do that. But like, it is awkward because basically the interaction is like, hi, here's my name. So here's my trauma history. Like, here's all of my deepest, darkest secrets. I don't know shit all about you, but I'm going to tell you all of the most deep and embarrassing and shameful things that have happened to me in my life. And like, that's alarming, So for your first session, I would say be prepared for there to be a little bit of awkwardness because it is uncomfortable. And that's not to say that like you're doing the wrong thing. You are not an awkward person. I promise that you are not like fucking it up or, being a loser or any of that stuff. It's just that the arrangement that we have with therapy is unique. Ideally, your therapist should be doing the best that they can to mitigate that awkwardness. I always just call it out into the room and I'm like, hi, nice to meet you. Sorry that you're in this situation that you have to spill your guts. I know that this is uncomfortable. I do always give my clients permission that like if there's something that comes up and they're not ready to talk about it, I tell all of my clients, you have carte blanche to tell me to fuck off at any time and we will just move on. Like no questions asked, we will just move on to a different topic. And so that might be helpful to keep in the back of your mind that like, if your therapist does ask you questions or like poke around at a subject that's kind of sore, it is okay for you to say, like, we will talk about it, or like, yes, that's something that I do want to talk about, but honestly, I'm just nervous. And like, I really want to get to know you first. And I kind of need some time before I'm ready to talk about that. Any good therapist who's not a total shithead should respect that and be like, okay, very much appreciate the honesty. I always tell my clients, like, if I could give you a high five, then I would for advocating for yourself, because it's actually a very important and useful skill. So don't be afraid to do that. But yeah, I mean, other than that, I think with your first session, the best thing you can do is be prepared to talk about yourself. Sometimes clients want to ask me questions about me and like, oh, like what's going on in your life? And my response is always like, I'm much more interested in what's going on with you, because it's not about your therapist. It is okay for you to ask questions and like want to get to know them and to some degree, but also understand that the therapeutic relationship only works if there is this like healthy distance that you and your therapist have. You can't really know too much about them and their personal life because like that's a lot, and the point is for your therapist to not be emotionally involved. Like you can't be friends with your therapist in order for the relationship to work. So, yeah, just be prepared to like talk about yourself and like air some stuff out. And, even if it is more surface level stuff, that's okay. But ultimately it's about you. So yeah, I'm like out of breath, y'all.
And do you need a water break real quick? Or you good?
I have coffee.
Okay. Yeah, just keep pounding it. Mm-hmm. All right, this next question comes from Aiden Patterson. He says, congratulations. This question is it super important to disclose all of your past trauma to your therapist, or can therapy be effective without that?
Okay, so is it important to disclose all of your past trauma? Yes and no. One of the things that's important to keep in mind about therapy is that none of us are ever done growing. There is no such thing as a perfect person. And so, you're not going to leave therapy and like discharge when you're done as this like perfectly self-actualized human being. There will be things that you just can't work on or don't work on, or like, aren't relevant for you to work on. So when we talk about whether it's necessary to disclose things, the reason I say yes is obviously because your therapist can only work with the information that you're bringing into the room. We can't help you with something if we don't know what it is. But along with that, there are some times where a client will have an issue that like maybe is bothering them a little bit. It's like a little bit inconvenient or frustrating, but it's not the reason that they showed up here. And so it's not cause for concern, or it's not an issue that they want to address with me. That's okay. I think it's really important to validate the fact that when we go to therapy, Our goal is not to like work on every single issue that we've ever had and like try and become this perfect person, because again, that's not possible. But second of all, because it's not always convenient. Sometimes people are in crisis and they have this like really obvious glaring issue that they want to work on. And so if that's all that you want to work on while you're in therapy, that's okay. That said, if there is a trauma or, you know, some stuff that is very much affecting your day-to-day life, is causing you some discomfort, is making it difficult for you to like have relationships with other people, to function in day-to-day life, to sit with your emotions and like, you know, process things. If you're finding yourself using substances or food or sex or like any other means of avoidance to check out of your emotions and it's related to this issue, that might be useful to bring up in therapy. And I think it's also okay if that issue is something that you want to work on, but maybe you're just not really sure how to bring it up. I have very much had the experience of clients saying like, okay, so bear with me. There's a thing. I don't really know how to say it. I don't really know how to bring it up. So I'm just going to spit it out. Like, that's okay too. If it's uncomfortable or scary or like weird and you are like not really sure how to talk about it, sometimes just bringing that into the room and talking to your therapist in that way is useful. I have also had or like interactions with clients where they've had a traumatic issue, but they didn't have the words to verbalize what it was, or it was so deeply traumatic for them that they literally couldn't use the words to describe what the thing was. And so I asked permission to kind of like throw some words out there, throw some suggestions out there and see what fit with them. And we kind of like collaborated in that way to figure out what the trauma and the issue was. So that's also an option to you too. But yeah, that's why I said the answer to this question is sort of yes and no. If it's something that you want to work on, you have to disclose that to your therapist. But like I said, not every issue is worth discussing or is able to be discussed in therapy. And so if that's the case for you, I think that's also okay. I hope that helps. Thank you for asking questions, though. I appreciate you guys so much.
I'm doing my best. I'm just going in order right now.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, cool. Consider about 30 minutes. You want to just say hi to the new people?
Oh yeah, hi everybody. Oh my God, it's already been 30 minutes. Wow. For those of you who are new here or missed the beginning, my name is Mickey. I am a therapist. We talk about therapist-y things here. We're doing a Q&A because we hit 10,000 subscribers and I wanted to celebrate. So we are taking questions. We're just kind of filtering through them in chronological order so that we're trying not to miss anybody. But yeah, if you guys have questions, please put them in the chat. My computer is over here and I'm really making a conscious effort to not do this. So I'm trying to not look at the chat, but my husband is back there reading the questions. So he will get to them and then relay them to me.
Cool.
Cool.
All right, cool. Our next question comes from Tatiana Myers. Do you have tips for self-care and recovery from childhood PTSD? I'm already working with a therapist I see every week.
Oh, fun. Okay, cool. So the first thing that I want to say is like, good for you for going to therapy and working on this stuff. Your therapist should also have good suggestions for self-care and stuff like that. I think I've made 2 videos now about self-care. I feel like I harp on self-care a lot. But this is one of those things that I feel really passionate about as a therapist, and like honestly one of the reasons that I made the channel, because I noticed people talking about self-care in this way that made it seem like bath bombs and face masks and massages and staycations were the only ways that we could do self-care. And like, that's not fucking true. Self-care, I think, is most effective when we're using it in a like predictable, routine-based kind of way. And so sometimes that means self-care has to be really quick and simple and cheap and like accessible. So, you know, sometimes self-care is like buying a candy bar from the gas station on your way home. Sometimes self-care is telling your partner or friend or roommate, I don't have space to talk right now and I need to be quiet. Sometimes self-care is the cosmetic stuff like bath bombs and massages and things like that. Sometimes self-care is just like wearing really comfy underpants. So I think it's important to reframe self-care in that way. And also to ask yourself, like, what do I need right now? That I think is a learning process that we all have to go through, and that, you know, will change over time, obviously. But like, there are days when I come home from work and I am just like talked out and like dead behind the eyes. And so really what I need is time to just like turn my brain off and stare at TikTok for 30 minutes until I feel human again. And like, that's very much a piece of my self-care, is taking time to like zip the lips. The nature of my job is that I talk a lot. And so I know for me, one of my needs is quiet time, is silence. So yeah, it's really just about getting in touch with what you need and what works best for you. Some people really vibe with like food and beverage based self-care. Some people really vibe with the cosmetic stuff. Some people feel really drawn to the idea of moving their body and like being physically active. All of those are very valid ways to practice self-care. And it really just depends, like I said, on what works best for you. However, I will say, again, one of the most impactful things about self-care is when we're not doing it like once every 3 months. So if you're able to find those little things that you can practice every day, multiple times in a day, that really increases the odds that your self-care is going to actually give back to you. Because when we frame self-care as like, going on a vacation and getting a massage once every 3 months, like that's not really helpful to you. I don't know about you, but I need my needs met more than once a quarter. So really try and narrow in on those like little, easy, achievable things. I hope that helps. I also have a video about that. If you want to poke around on the channel, I do talk about that somewhere.
All right, ready for your next one?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this one I always wonder about too, personally. Mm-hmm. This one comes from Root Groves. Mm-hmm. I've always wondered how therapists manage to remain impartial and not judge clients. If someone came to you and told you that they had done some really horrific things, how do you not judge them?
So this is honestly like easier than you think. A lot of people say some variation of this about therapists as if we are like superhuman, and like really that's not what it is. Okay, so when we talk about like somebody doing something horrific, again, usually if somebody is disclosing something like that to you, it's A, because they feel bad about it, which helps a lot with the non-judgmentalism, but B is because there was a lot of context and like extenuating circumstances that influenced their decision to do that thing. So everyone has different buttons. Everyone has different sore spots. Like a lot of therapists that I knew when I was doing my internship mentioned how they couldn't work with children who had survived like childhood trauma and like abuse after they had their own children, because after they had their own kids, it became a soft spot for them and they like really had a hard time with that. And so like, again, everybody has their own issues that are like sore spots. But I think, when you have all of the context around why a person did something or why a person behaved the way that they behaved, it makes it a lot easier to like humanize that and understand where they were coming from. It's also just like very much a core tenet, at least of social work and like of my field, that all human beings are worthy of love and belonging. Regardless of the things that we have done or how we have behaved or hurt other people, we all have a core value as a human being that doesn't change. That stays the same, that will always be the same, regardless of how you behave or the things that you've done or the people that you've hurt. You are always worthy of love and belonging. And so a lot of times it's just about coming back to that and reminding ourselves that like, yes, maybe this is one of those things that pushes my buttons, but also this person is still a person and they are imperfect. It's also helpful to keep in mind too, that like, if I had to own every single thing that I had ever done or said, that was shameful or hurtful to other people, then like, I would sound like a terrible person too. Like if I presented it in that, light of like, here are only the bad things, then of course I'm going to sound like an awful person. But people are complex, like people are multidimensional and we all have different factors in our lives and like different stuff going on for us depending on where we're at with things. And so, yeah, I think it's just very much about, keeping in mind a person's whole personhood and not just the bad things, but also like really exercising that, like deference, I guess, for like the context and like what was going on for them, like all of the surrounding information. Yeah.
This next one I had just because how the video went and stuff. I just thought this was really nice. Genos said, found you through your Psych2Go video and have binged all your videos. Love your channel. Keep up the good work.
Thanks. Yeah, I noticed that a couple of people in the comments mentioned they found me either because the Psych2Go video blew up or because Psych2Go posted it on their channel page. So hi, thanks for coming. I'm glad that that video and that whole exchange ended up being positive and, opened a dialogue and a conversation for people. So thanks for coming. I'm glad that you guys are here.
Another one from Starbeam. What's your favorite go-to metaphor in therapy?
Oh, this is an easy one. Oh, I love this. Okay, so if you guys have watched the channel for any length of time, you know that I am a child.
I already know what it's going to be.
I, at the core, am like I'm very much like this childlike sense of humor. And so like poop and fart jokes just make me laugh. And one of my favorite metaphors or like analogies to use with clients is that our emotions are like poop. Our emotions are like poop for a number of different reasons. The first of which is that emotions are a human and bodily need. They have to be expressed, and our body will very much let us know when it needs to come out of us. We can feel it. Like when you're sad and you're like sad, like your chest hurts, or like when we have to cry and your throat hurts, or you get that like lump back there and you're like, sucking the tears back in. That's your body telling you like, hey, bro, what the fuck? Like, what are you doing? We have a bodily need that's not being expressed. And so the same way that your tummy gets kind of like irpy and weird when you have to poop and you don't poop, your body is like, excuse me, hello, hi. There's something that's trying to escape from our body and you're not letting it out. So like, please stop doing that. Our emotions are also like poop because if we don't express them and we manage to suppress that urge, even for the time being, it will come back around. So like if you're standing in line at the grocery store and you get that feeling where you're like, oop, I gotta poop. And obviously you're standing in line at the grocery store, so you're not gonna like shit your pants just standing in line. So we like manage to suppress that urge a little bit, But usually by the time that you've paid for your groceries, you've gotten in your car and you've driven home, then you're like, oh yeah, I forgot I have to shit. So I'm gonna go poop. The same thing happens with our emotions. And so even if we are like out at the grocery store and we get this like big wave of deep sadness, most of us aren't going to burst into tears at the grocery store. If you do, that's cool. No shame. But most of us are going to suppress that urge for the time being because it's not like socially acceptable to do that. That doesn't mean that urge is not going to come back around though. And so even when we do this thing where we try to convince ourselves that like, oh, okay, good. I suppressed it. It's gone. It's never coming back again. Like, bitch, yes, it is. It's going to come back and it will continue to haunt you until you express that emotion. And if we don't express that emotion, we get a backlog. Nobody wants to be emotionally constipated because it's like shaking up a soda bottle and eventually it will explode everywhere. Nobody wants to have emotional diarrhea in a way that is inconvenient or uncomfortable. So like, just feel your feelings. Just put them out there in a like safe and socially acceptable way. But yeah, I think I use that one a lot and people seem to vibe with that and like understand that because it's like, it's very human. Emotions are very human. All right.
Okay.
Another
so
question.
Because we're going to be buried. Like we'd be here if we go.
Yeah,
I'm
no, that's okay.
Yeah,
that's fine.
Okay? So please, no one take anything. It's not personal.
I know there's a lot of comments and questions and stuff, and we see you. We're just like doing our best.
Because like there's one down here about astrology that I definitely am bugging your ass about. And then so I just wanted to. Starlight Wilson said, yeah. You're the reason I finally found a therapist. I kept my bar high in finding one because of your videos.
Yes.
The one I found, she reminds me of you, and I couldn't have you. Thank you for your channel. I just wanted to talk about, because that's when we started the channel.
Yes.
Over a year ago now?
Yeah, almost 2 years ago. That makes my heart so happy. Thank you for saying that. Everyone, please take note of this, because I think a lot of times the tendency with therapy is like, I just have to find somebody, like anybody who is like affordable. And like, a lot of times too, clients feel like they're trying to get their therapist to accept them. And like, fuck that. You are the person with the money and the power in this exchange. So don't lower your standards. Please don't feel like you have to just take any like schmuck therapist off the street. Like, there is very much a therapist out there who is like your therapist and your person, and who will meet the standards that you have for what you want in a therapist. Oh, that's so exciting and so encouraging, because I really feel strongly that like finding your perfect therapist is like finding your perfect pair of shoes, in that, it takes a couple tries before you find the perfect fit. But like once you find them, you're like, yes, this is my favorite. I like this. And it really goes a long way in helping you actually make progress in therapy too. So yeah. Oh, that's so exciting. Thank you for saying that. All right.
Do you think it would help if I posted the question in the chat too as just what you're answering?
What do you mean?
At the person?
You can.
Okay. Anyways, this one's from Mushroom Queen 27. You shouted it out earlier. A fellow Tucsonan here. My last therapist didn't feel very helpful because I would mention an issue and how I was trying to cope, and she's like, "Yeah, that's good."
Okay.
And then nothing else. Is that normal?
Well, so I think this is kind of a hard issue because, therapists don't want to be the people who are like, well, I know that you said it's good, but because I'm the therapist, I have a better idea for you. It's kind of invalidating and frustrating to tell someone like, hey, I found a solution to this. And for them to be like, well, I have a better one though. Like I'm the expert in the room. So I have a better one. Like doesn't feel good. So I think that might have been where they were coming from. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely room for discussion there. And one of the questions that I always ask my clients is like, okay, so it sounds like that's working for you. Is that something that you want to continue to improve on, or are you happy with that? Like, do you want to table that and chuck that conversation out the window so that we can focus on something else? Or like, because if somebody brought it into the room and they're talking about it, that usually means that they want to talk about it. So yeah, I mean, in that scenario as the client, I think it can be helpful to say, hey, looking for feedback. That's great. Like, I appreciate you not wanting to like trample on my ideas, but like, hello, I'm paying you for a service. Like, please give me more advice. Sometimes therapists are, I don't want to say dense because we're not like dumb, but I think sometimes we go too far in exercising that like, the client is the expert in their own life thing. And so we can be a little bit too hands off sometimes. So it's okay for you to be like, yeah, no, what I really was looking for was like very hands on, like get in there, pal, give me more advice. Yeah, that's really frustrating. I'm sorry. I hope that you're able to like talk to them about it.
Ready for another?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yes.
Alyssa asks, I'm curious, what's your zodiac sign? Anything else you know about your astrology and your thoughts on astrology as a concept? Okay. Are you allowed to...
Well, yeah. I mean, okay. So this is one of those areas where my personal and professional very much diverge because as a professional, I am happy to sort of like chuckle at astrology jokes and like, make space for clients to talk about it. But like for me personally, or like professionally as a therapist, I'm not going to bring astrology into the room. I'm not going to tell one of my clients like, oh, you're such a Gemini. That's why you have issues. Like, no, very much no. Again, if you have watched the channel for any length of time, you know that I feel very strongly about using evidence-based practice and research to back up my approach. So I don't talk about stuff like that. However, in my personal life, I am very much a fan of astrology and crystals and like the whole thing, like, sort of like baby witchcraft and all that stuff. I find very interesting, very intriguing. I have done my birth chart. I did it a while ago, so I don't really remember very much from it. My sign is a Scorpio. I was born in November. So, yeah, I feel like that sign fits with me a lot. I do have like a very intense kind of energy, and that's like a very Scorpio thing. But yeah, this is again one of those areas where like my personal and professional are like very much different because as a therapist, I would never talk about it. But in my personal life, like my best friend Jax, she and I are like very into that stuff and we talk about it a lot and, sort of like a hobby, I guess, of mine. I also really love Maren Altman on TikTok. If you guys don't follow her, you should. Her account is very interesting.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Ready for another one?
Dia said, gosh dang it, Mickey. Shut up, Dia. Dia is a friend of mine, and she's very much the opposite of that. She's very, very evidence-based and research in her personal and professional life.
Okay, we have a question from Jasmine.
Mm-hmm. Hi, Jasmine.
She says hi.
Hi.
Don't know if this was discussed yet or not. Do you have clients who identify as neurodivergent who accurately self-diagnose?
Okay, so the issue of neurodivergency and self-diagnosis is complicated because for certain neurodivergent diagnoses, in order to access the appropriate resources that a person might need, sometimes you need more in-depth analysis than what a therapist can provide. So like ADHD is a great example of this. If you are a person who has ADHD and you feel like you meet all of the diagnostic criteria for this, and you are, like, for example, seeking to be medicated for ADHD, me as a therapist, I can diagnose you and say, yes, I see this. I can give you like a screening tool and say, you meet the criteria for this. However, that's not always going to be sufficient, like proof for a psychiatrist. And so sometimes you need things like professional assessments and like brain scans and tests and like the whole thing with like the electrodes and like what the fuck ever. So it's very complicated and it's very nuanced. And this is one of those areas where it's really important for me as a therapist to be mindful of how my profession has like gaps or is like, sort of missing stuff, because I'm not a psychiatrist. I don't know anything about medication or like how to appropriately prescribe any of that stuff. Like that's not my wheelhouse. So I can't really throw my weight around in that arena and tell a psychiatrist like you're wrong if like the diagnostic tests and stuff that they've run don't meet whatever criteria or like threshold that they're looking for. So in terms of self-diagnosis, like from my just anecdotal personal experience, I have noticed the neurodivergent clients that I have had seem to be pretty on point with their self-diagnosis. But again, that varies. And like you will get a different answer to that question depending on which professional you ask. Because again, there's like lots of different just like stuff at play there. But yeah, and I think it's also important to acknowledge how difficult it is to get a diagnosis for those things because, brain scans and the like battery of tests that you have to do usually are expensive. And like, hello, we live in America where not everybody has access to health insurance at all, let alone good health insurance. And so it can be very unattainable for some people. And like for some neurodivergent people, self-diagnosis is the closest that they will get to, accessing those resources. So yeah, self-diagnosis is kind of, it's like a tricky area. It's very much a slippery slope. Okay. Next question, please.
I'm trying to give you time to breathe, or else you're gonna.
Yeah, I'm drinking water. I'm fine.
All right, I love this question. It's from Kira Henderson. Is it difficult relating to or helping clients from extremely difficult backgrounds or experiences than your own?
Okay, so is it difficult treating people from different backgrounds than mine?
Or experiences from your own. Correct.
Yeah, I mean, I would say yes, like generally yes. Obviously, if somebody has an issue or like a symptom that I have experienced in my own life, then obviously like I get that and I'm able to empathize with that quicker. But I don't think it's necessarily like a barrier to service, at least for me. I feel like I do a pretty good job of trying to, hold space for people's differing experiences and stuff. I have clients with a wide range of beliefs in all different arenas, like in the political, social, spiritual, all of that kind of stuff. And so I feel like I do a pretty decent job of maintaining non-judgmentalism and like the objectivism, I don't know if that's a word, objectiveness there. But yeah, like I said, obviously if somebody is similar to me, then I vibe with that quicker and find it easier to work with them. But I don't know that it necessarily makes it harder per se, as it would just like take me longer to like develop that same level of rapport or like connectedness. I hope that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. All right, our next one comes from the Vegan Apprentice. She says, Mickey, you are beautiful and inspiring.
Oh, thanks.
Do you have any advice for aspiring therapists? What is the most challenging aspect of your job?
So, advice for aspiring therapists. Aspiring therapists. I talked about this briefly earlier, but I think one of the best things that we can do is to be comfortable in, understanding that we won't know everything. we all have something to learn from someone. I mean, therapists or otherwise, but especially in the like therapy and clinical space, we all have room to grow and to learn and to adjust our approach to be better therapists. So that's something that I have very much leaned into, and I think has helped with staving off the like ego thing that can be a very common issue for therapists, is this like egotistical, like I'm never wrong, point of view. And so I think that's helped me a lot, at least, to like really lean into the idea that like, I don't know everything. I will fuck it up sometimes, and that's okay. Also too, just from a therapist perspective, when we get something wrong or we say something that's hurtful or we approach a conversation with a client the wrong way, we get the opportunity then to model how to appropriately apologize, what it looks like to take accountability for when we've done something wrong. And that's really, really important and really impactful, especially if a client has not experienced that in their life thus far. So don't be afraid to like not know or fuck it up, or, tell your client like, I don't know anything about that, but I'll do some research and I'll get back to you. I've had that conversation many times with clients where I'm like, I don't know what that is, or like, I've never worked with this issue before, so I'll do my best to gather some research and some resources and I'll get back to you. Like I said, I think it helps a lot with putting off or like avoiding that thing that a lot of therapists encounter, where it's like this sort of ego-driven practice and keeps us client-centered. I think was there a second part of that question? I already forgot. I'm sorry.
Was that the sorry, I'm trying to read it.
He was aspiring therapists.
What is the most challenging aspect of your job?
Definitely the talking or like the thinking. I have ADHD, and so I commonly describe my brain like a fly trapped in a jar. And so by the end of the day, it feels like somebody's just shaking up the fly inside the jar, and my brain is just like empty, but also full at the same time. So yeah, the self-care around that issue has been very important for me. I mentioned this earlier, but one of the most important parts of my like end of night routine is turning my brain off and giving myself permission to not talk to anybody, to not hold space for anybody. My husband and I, our work schedules thankfully line up in such a way that I get a little bit of a break before he and I are home at the same time at the end of our workday. So I get the chance to turn my brain off and kind of like be a person again instead of a therapist. And then I have space to hold for, like, how was your day? What's going on with you? All of that kind of stuff. But yeah, I think that's definitely the most difficult part for me, at least, is just like this experience of being, holding space for people all day. And it's an odd situation, because you're talking to people all day and you very much have to be on. Like, you can't not focus or like not pay attention when you're a therapist. But you're also like not talking to people in the same way that you would if you were like chit-chatting with a friend. It's very one-sided in that way. So sometimes by the end of the day, by the time my husband gets home, I'm like, oh my God, I have so many things to tell you. And like, I haven't really had a chance to talk about me all day. And so I will like talk his ear off when he finally gets home, because I'm like, I had all of these thoughts and I had feelings and there were these things that happened for me and I couldn't tell anybody about it. I also don't have coworkers, so I think that's probably a factor there. I'm sure if you work at like an agency or you have other therapist friends, that makes a difference. But at least for me, like at the end of the day, I'm like both talked out and like really need to talk. So I know that kind of doesn't make sense, but I hope you guys get what I'm saying.
It's actually, I think that lines up perfectly with this next question from, I hope I don't say that, Kaini Ross.
Okay.
How do you separate yourself from your clients' issues without losing empathy, but not becoming so invested in their problems that it starts to heavily affect your daily life and mental health?
So this is very much a learning process. When I was a new therapist, I struggled with this a lot because I am just, naturally inclined to jump in to people's stuff. And so I had to really exercise like taking a back seat to things, and like disconnecting myself from people and their problems. One of the like mantras that I used during that time was that this is an adult person. This person is capable. This person survived before they met me, and they will continue to survive long after I leave their life. It's not my job to fix anybody, to save anybody, or to like, you know, be this like everything to someone. My job is to be like in the passenger seat for these people. My job is not to be in the driver's seat and to save people, especially like I think the saving people thing is a very common issue that new and like, you know, younger therapists have, is this desire to like get in there and like, I'm going to help you. I have all these tools and techniques and I'm going to fix it. And like, no, that's not my job. My job is to help a person see how they can like unfuck their own stuff and not for me to unfuck it for them. I hope that that makes sense.
Yes.
Okay.
And we have a question from.
My foot is asleep.
You okay?
My foot is just asleep.
Abby Grace, how to mindfully get a partner or loved one to communicate more?
So ask. One of the best things that we can do when we're trying to, you know, teach our partner or a friend or anybody really how to love us more effectively is to ask them specifically, explicitly, in detail, these are the things that I want and need. One of the other things that can be very helpful is when you notice them doing the thing. So like if you're looking for communication, and you notice that your partner communicated with you like really effectively, or there was a time where they like really opened up to you, throw a fucking party. Throw a party and be so excited and be like, oh my gosh, wow, that was awesome. Like that made me feel really good. Obviously, like this is different depending on what your preference is. If you're a person who's like quieter or like more soft spoken, it's okay for you to voice that in your own tone of voice. But reinforce that desired outcome. So if you notice this person being really communicative, say that like, hey, I see you, like you're making an effort. And like, I saw that you just like stepped outside your comfort zone to communicate something to me. And like, that made me feel really good. That made me feel really seen. That made me fall even more in love with you than I was before because I feel so connected to you. And like, whatever it is that sounds authentic to you, reinforce that behavior as like your desired outcome and share why you like that. Because I think that's also sometimes an issue with the communication stuff, is that the partner who is being asked for a change in their behavior feels like, well, why don't you just accept me the way that I am? Why am I not good enough for you? And that's usually not where the desire for change comes from. It just is a person looking to be loved more in line with the way that they feel loved. This is kind of like a love languages thing. But yeah, reinforcing that behavior and also just like explicitly asking for it. It can work the other way around too, where if you notice that there was a time that you asked them to communicate with you and you didn't, voice that and like, hey, listen, this was something that really upset me or really hurt my feelings, or like this, when I tell you that I want you to communicate with me more, this is why I say that, because this thing happened and I feel this way. And like, this is why I think it would be helpful for us as a team to communicate more. Not necessarily that like me as a person am looking for you to change, but just that we as a team can continue to function more effectively if we grow together, you know? Yeah.
Our next one's from Mandy Scales.
Hi, Mandy.
How has being a YouTuber, Instagram famous, and how have you come across a client, past or present? If so, how did you deal with it?
First of all, thank you very much, but I refuse to acknowledge or call myself Instagram famous or YouTube famous or whatever. I've had the YouTube channel for almost 2 years now, and my Instagram for, I think, about half that time, so about a year. So yeah, I have had clients stumble across my social media presence. And if a client wants to talk about it, I'm always open to talk about it. But you know, the thing that I maintain is that what we are doing is separate. It's very different from my day job. This is all what, like in the therapy community, we call it psychoeducation. It's like educational tools and tips. This is not therapy. This is not a replacement for therapy. And so, you know, those services are very different. And so I always reassure my clients, you do not have to interact with me on social media. I also have to clarify the boundaries there, that I have a social media presence. And of course, I interact with people here. But I am ethically, morally, like legally not allowed to interact with my clients on social media. So I can't follow anybody. I can't DM anybody. I can't like their posts or comment on their stuff, like none of that shit. If they want to like and comment on mine, that's fine. But I always make sure to let people know that I can't guarantee your confidentiality if you want to interact with my social media stuff. So please be mindful of that. But yeah, I mean, that's why this is, again, like very different, very separate from therapy and like my day job. This is me trying to like spread the knowledge and awareness and all of that stuff for people who don't have access to therapy or like who are looking for more mental health resources and stuff. So yeah, it's very nuanced.
Speaking of nuance, from Gino's Q, how should I come out to my therapist who I've seen for 3 years now that I'm non-binary? She doesn't really understand they, them pronouns, and I'm really scared too, but I'm tired of her misgendering me, understandably. Yeah, that's fucked. My initial response to this was like, just do it. But of course, it's more complicated than that. And I think, it's hard because we can't always guarantee that a person understands or is validating of that identity. I think most therapists nowadays are kind of getting on board with the idea of like the sort of like general labels of like lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, like the core acronym. But the, non-binary, agender, asexual, aromantic, like all of those labels are still very confusing for some therapists. So I think the first thing here is to make sure that it's safe for you. If you have an inclination or any whiff that your therapist is going to be actively hurtful to you, I would be mindful of that. There are like a number of different action plans that you can take if your therapist is being discriminatory towards you. So I would encourage you to look into those if that's necessary. But honestly, like with the not knowing if they understand it or get it, I would really just continue to reinforce that, like, listen, this is my reality. You don't have to agree with me or like get it, I guess. But like, as the person who is supposed to be the professional in the room, I am imploring you to go do some research. You don't have to just get it right off the bat, but you need to try. And I'm not going to put up with you labeling me in this way or misgendering me or not treating me in the way that I deserve to be treated. And I know that this is a very therapist-y way to phrase this. This is like how I would phrase it because I'm a therapist. Phrase it in whatever way feels authentic to you, but I would encourage you to put your foot down and let them know that, like, this is my identity. This is not up for debate. This is not a thought experiment. This is not something that we're going to, hold like a agree to disagree conversation about. Like, no, you can either be validating of my identity or like I'm leaving, basically. Because like it's just not okay. It's not okay for your therapist to treat, your identity like, just a casual topic of conversation. If it's important to you, it should be important to them. Just, that goes for all things, but especially that area. Our next one comes from, do you need a minute or are you okay? No, I'm good. All right, cool. Our next one comes from Brett. How do I bring up mental health concerns to my doctor or therapist? I think I might have a disorder, but I don't want to seem like I'm self-diagnosing. And I don't really know how to bring it up. Okay. So typically, it depends on where you are, I guess, but it's not uncommon for primary care physicians and like regular doctor's offices to give you those little questionnaires. Usually what they give you is the GAD-7, which is the anxiety screening tool, and the PHQ-9, which is the depression screening tool. If you score high enough on those, then they will open that conversation with you. But if that's not happening, it's okay to just be like, hey, listen, so I've been doing some research. I'm noticing some stuff that's different for me. And I want to get connected to a mental health professional, or I need help with this issue and I don't really know what this is or what this means. Even if you are self-diagnosing, your medical professionals should understand, I guess, or at least be willing to hold space for the fact that, like,
Self-diagnosis comes from a desire to have answers and to feel validated and understood, right? And to access resources. So I would encourage you to voice it in that way, that like, I understand that I'm not an expert and I might not know, but I know me and I know that this is not right and this is different. So I need your help to get connected to a therapist, a psychologist, a psychiatrist, what the fuck ever. You can also just straight up ask them like, hey, do you have any recommendations for a therapist? And usually doctors' offices do, because therapists are notorious for leaving their business cards with primary care physicians and things like that, because that's like a very easy referral source, right? So you can always just ask, do you have any recommendations for a therapist? And just like leave it at that. Yeah.
How much longer?
What time is it?
4:10.
Okay, so it's been like an hour and change.
Maybe like 20 more minutes, or
yeah, we'll do a little bit longer.
Okay, cool.
I'm okay.
Okay, so what? Probably do another hour. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I think we'll call it at probably 5.
Awesome.
If things are still like popping off, we'll start to.
We are no shortage of questions.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Okay, cool. Do you have any questions for everyone watching?
I don't know. Let me think on that. I'm gonna put my hair up while you ask the next question, though.
Okay. Our next question is Mehta Patel. How would you advise teletherapy clients in an environment that is not the most conducive to sharing really personal or private information? Oh, this sounds like the car thing.
Car thing?
Well, like when your client doing teletherapy.
Oh, yes.
You want to read the question again?
Yeah, can you read it again?
How would you advise teletherapy clients in an environment that is not the most conducive to sharing really personal or private information?
Okay, so this is an issue that I ran into back in March, April, May, when everything in the United States locked down initially, because we were sort of thrust into telehealth. And like previously, like I had never done telehealth. I had no idea what that looked like or how to do that. And so it was very much a learning experience for everybody. We realized very quickly that not everybody has access to a space that is private, that's confidential, that they feel safe in, and that gives them, that same feeling. Because walking into a therapist office is kind of, reassuring, or at least it should be, because, it's this like very carefully curated environment that allows you to feel like this is the place to share my shit. So it kind of hits different when you're talking about like depression or anxiety from your bedroom, and you know full well that your family or your partner or your kids might hear you outside the door. I have had clients call me from all different range of locations. People call me from their cars, from their parking lot at work, from random parking lots in the middle of nowhere, from just like all different types of places. But I think with that in mind, if telehealth is not working for you because of any of those reasons, I would encourage you to voice that with your therapist so that you guys can try and figure out how you can work around that. I did have a couple clients in, March, April, May, like the early part of the quarantine, that temporarily discharged because they just were so uncomfortable with telehealth that it wasn't a fit for them. And then we picked up services later on when I was able to go back into the office. Therapy is considered an essential service in a lot of places. And so that allows us to practice in person if really, really necessary. So that might be a conversation to bring up, that like, this is really not working for me. Not a fan of this. Is there like some other type of fit that we can try? The other suggestion that I have is to try and be creative in terms of the timing and scheduling of your appointments. If you're able to schedule something on your lunch break and like sit in your car, if you're able to schedule something like after your kids go to bed, or when your partner is at work, or when your family is like out and about, obviously utilize those resources, and, just ask your therapist to be flexible with you, because this is like everybody's favorite phrase. This is unprecedented times, and like we're all kind of still learning. So it's difficult. It's not I think an easy solution or like a one size fits all for sure. But it's kind of nice that it's not a one size fits all, because it allows some room for flexibility in trying to find what works best for you, I guess. Yeah, telehealth is hard.
Mm-hmm. Okay, our next question from Kylan. Sorry,
okay, that was word salad.
my therapist is trying to break up with me. She wants to refer me out, and I don't know what I don't want to go.
Okay.
Therapy with her is not helpful anymore, but I want to stay. What do I do?
Okay. I mean, my first question that I would have, or like encourage you to do some reflection about, is if it's not helpful to you, why do you want to stay? And that might very well be the reason that your therapist is discharging you, because if it's no longer helpful to you, but you are afraid to leave, super valid. And I think that makes a lot of sense because it's very much a comfort zone thing. But ultimately therapy is supposed to be helpful. And I think there are some ethical considerations from the therapist point of view there, that like, it's not ethical or appropriate for us to continue taking money from a client if we know that we're not helping them. That said, I think it's important for therapists to approach discharge and like firing a client with compassion, because therapy is a very unique relationship. It's weirdly personal, but in a very distant kind of way. And so, if it's something that you're struggling with or feeling some type of way about, I would encourage you to talk with them about it, especially if you're feeling like rejected or feeling like embarrassed, or if there's shame coming up. It can be helpful to talk with your therapist about it because, like I said, it's important for professionals to exercise some compassion in that area. There are also lots of different reasons that therapists will discharge a client. I have had to do this because I recognize that I didn't have the skill set to help them. I've referred clients out because I recognize that they weren't ready to work on, issues X, Y, or Z. And so they needed a different, like lighter approach. I am like very, no nonsense. And so I'm very much like, we're going to get in it, and sometimes people aren't ready for that. And that's okay. That's not a statement about a client's, value or, like ability to change in therapy. It's just that our two puzzle pieces didn't happen to fit together. So it's my ethical and like moral responsibility to refer them out to somebody who can actually help them. I always tell my clients that they are always welcome to come back if and when they need help, or they want to do like a checkup sort of session. And so that might also be something helpful to ask, is like, well, hey, if I try services with a different therapist for X amount of time and that's not a fit, like, can I contact you again? Or like, are you firing me permanently? Or, maybe it would be helpful to ask, like, why are you discharging me? I think there is always room for clients to ask their therapist questions about what's going on, why is this happening, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, I guess I would just encourage you to advocate for yourself in that way and like not be afraid to, like voice how you feel, because you're allowed to feel how you feel.
This is another behind the scenes question from Kira.
Okay.
Are therapists allowed to talk to other therapists about specific clients, specifically about how to best help them, or does that break code/ethics?
So, I mean, no, but also yes. We cannot share any identifying information, and we really shouldn't be staffing clients with someone who is not our supervisor. So like the arrangement that I have, my supervisor, I staff some of my cases with her as I need to. But my clients have to sign paperwork beforehand consenting for me to do that. They have to be made aware that that's going on, and they have to consent for that to happen. So, that is an important piece of consideration, like the consent part of that. It's not uncommon though for therapists, like especially in the agency environment, to staff cases and like talk about, oh yeah, I had issue X, Y, and Z come up in session today. Our dog is coming in the room, so she's going to knock everything down, hopefully. Oh, both of them. Wow. So it's not uncommon for therapists to chat with other therapist friends about, like I said, like a particular issue. But the key there is that we cannot release any identifying information. So I can't say, my dog Savannah just put her big old fat butt on the tripod. What are you doing, goof? We can't say, client whose age X, Y, and Z, with issue X, Y, and Z, like especially things like their name, date of birth, like all of that is off limits. We have to be very mindful of that. It's not uncommon for therapists to intentionally change some of those details. So like if a client is a particular gender identity, we will switch the gender identity when we talk about that, or like whatever, just to help, keep things very much on the up and up. Pup time. Yes, very much puppy time. But yeah, I think, like I said, it's not uncommon for therapists to staff things, but we do have to be very mindful and very careful about how we do it, because we are not allowed to do that, really, like without the consents and all of that stuff.
They're getting so fancy. Sorry, I just hit my next. Okay, so there's a couple ED questions, eating disorder. But I'll kind of use this if you want to just talk about it broadly, probably. But we'll use this as like this from Root Groves. Any tips for telling people you have an eating disorder? I don't look like I have an eating disorder, and I think they will react badly and not understand that it's an eating disorder, not a weight disorder. I think that's something. Yeah.
Ooh, yes, I love that. Ooh, that's such an important distinction. So right off the bat, we should talk about how eating disorders don't have a look. You don't have to look any type of way to have an eating disorder, because A, that's weight stigma, that's fucked up. But B, because there are so many different eating disorders that we, don't even have in the DSM yet. So to talk about a person, like you don't look like you have an eating disorder is just fucked. Like, please don't ever fucking say that to people. It's not helpful. It's not useful. It's not encouraging. It doesn't mean anything positive or helpful to anyone. If you are wanting to have that conversation, I think, it's important to be mindful of the fact that not everyone will be validating. And so, with any disorder or like mental health thing, when we disclose that, our dogs are so upset. Livy! Okay, maybe we should put the dogs in the other room. Hold on. Our camera's all fucked up. The dog dead ass almost knocked the whole thing on the ground. What's funny too is that we played ball with them for at least 45 minutes before we came in here and streamed, because I knew they were going to be feral, but lo and behold, sorry, they're so sassy. Yeah, no, they really are. Okay. All right. Well, that was a bloodbath. Anyways, with the eating disorder stuff, when we disclose like eating disorders or like any disorder, really, it's important to be mindful that not everyone will be validating of that. And so we kind of have to suss out on a case-by-case basis whether or not this is safe for me. If somebody, is going to be invalidating of you sharing a part of your mental health journey, and that's going to like throw you into a tailspin, then, maybe that's not the time and place to disclose that. But if you are sort of ready and okay with having that conversation and like, hey, fuck you, please don't say things like, I don't look like I have an eating disorder, then have at it. I think it's totally okay for you to voice, what's going on with you and how you feel, and talk about all of that stuff if you, like I said, if you're ready for that. Yeah, I mean, the eating disorder thing is hard because a lot of people are so entrenched in diet culture bullshit anyways that like we don't see disordered eating as disordered eating. And so people cast eating disorders in this kind of caricature role of like, looking like a skeletal person. And that's the only person who has an eating disorder, when like we know that that's not true. Can we meet the doggos? Well, we just put them outside, but if you guys want to meet them, I can try and
so we could do a meet and greet
at the end. I know, yeah, we'll do a meet and greet at the end. That way they can't knock all of our goddamn equipment over.
We'll like not talk about therapy related stuff the last like 20 minutes. Just hang out.
Yeah.
Was that the end of?
Yes.
Okay.
This is the end of my rant about eating disorders.
Okay. This question's super cool. From Christina.
Hi, Christina.
Any thoughts on what should be included in DSM-6? Like maybe more behavior conditions like video games or internet stuff like that?
Yes. Since we're just talking about eating disorders, I would love to see orthorexia and binge eating disorder and like all of I would love to see a like eating disorder not otherwise specified included in the DSM, or like just a disordered eating code, like a Z code or a C code, because I think, a lot of times people are subclinical with eating disorders, but that does not mean that they don't have disordered eating. And I really want a fucking diagnostic code for that. I also really want to be able to bill for that. So that would be really good, I think. I also would love to see some more like nuanced trauma diagnoses, because right now we kind of have like PTSD and like adjustment disorder and like, not otherwise specified. And like, that's not super helpful. I would love to see some more nuance in that area. And again, like maybe some more Z codes and things like that to, just add some more context and like, again, like the ability for people to meet a clinical diagnosis without having to meet like the very stringent diagnostic criteria for something like PTSD. Let me think, what else? I mean, I think definitely the, addiction and like, to video games and like other different activities would be interesting. I personally just don't know a lot about substance abuse disorders or addictive disorders. So that is kind of a gray area for me. I did just think about OCD and other anxiety disorders though, and I think it would be very helpful again to kind of expand the diagnostic criteria in that area. And I would also love to see the DSM have some more actually useful fucking information about how to diagnose OCD, because right now the DSM is very vague around this topic, and they sort of present OCD and autism spectrum disorder in this way that is like very caricature-y, and like doesn't actually help you identify OCD like in the wild. And so I think it would be really, really cool to see them do some more expansion on that and to include some more examples so that clinicians, like especially right out of grad school, have some more information to work with about like, no, yeah, like that's actually OCD, especially like pure OCD and all of those things. That would be really cool. So
unconventional OCD. No, for real though. I know it's such a gray, like their DSM tries to make everything black and white.
Yes, like. Yeah. It's very vague too.
From Lucia, I'm sorry, I'm not gonna try it. From Lucia.
Okay, hopefully. Lucia.
Why do therapists out their child's clients' problems to their abusive parents?
Why do therapists out their clients' problems to their abusive parents?
Assuming, yeah.
Okay. So this is hard. This is why I don't work with people who are under 18, because abusive parents have a tendency to get over involved. And oftentimes, this is sort of like the joke and like the trope that like kids who are in therapy are not actually the ones who need therapy. It's mom and dad who need therapy because they're actively wounding the child. And it's kind of an ethical gray area because we are obligated to share that information with, mom and dad or mom and mom or guardians or whoever has legal custody of the child, because the child can't make medical decisions on their own. I understand where people are coming from, or like where therapists are coming from with disclosing this, because like, if a kid has, I don't know, fucking strep throat, a primary care physician is going to tell the primary caregiver, the legal guardian for the child, obviously, because they can't care for that on their own, right? Problem with this is that it's more nuanced than that with mental health and with therapy. So one of the things that I know some therapists practice with clients who are under 18, especially when we get into like the 15, 16, 17 years old category, is the differentiation between privacy and confidentiality. Legally, we can't keep everything confidential from your legal guardians. However, that does not mean that I can't keep some things kind of private. Like if your legal guardian asks for the documentation, the notes that I have to write for every session, I can't say no, but I can make sure that I'm real fucking vague in those notes and that I write things only like the bare minimum to ensure, that I justify medical necessity, but that I'm not including the nitty gritty details. I can also try and have those conversations with, guardians or whoever, in a way that preserves some of your privacy. And I can also encourage the parents to say, hey, listen, the topic that you are asking questions about is a bit of a sore spot. And so if you really have questions for me, I would encourage you to speak with the child about that, not me, because what you're doing is asking me to violate privacy. And like, that's hard because, your child is going to feel like you're going behind their back. Unfortunately, not all therapists practice this way. And like I said, it's kind of a gray area because I do understand that, like, you know, legally and morally and ethically, we're obligated to share that information with guardians and primary caregivers when they ask or when it's necessary. But there's a lot of nuance to that. And I think it's hard because, you know, there's not a perfect way to do that, I don't think. And again, this is why I really, really do not want to work with anybody under the age of 18, because there's like too many cooks in the kitchen, and we really have the potential to hurt people. And having like an abusive parent have, you know, the information that somebody disclosed with you in confidence is like a surefire way to annihilate your therapeutic alliance and your relationship with them. And they don't want to fucking talk to you after you just outed them to their abusive parents. So, like, you know, like I said, it's nuanced and it's difficult for sure.
Okay, I'm gonna post the next question. It's
okay.
From Small Bean.
Small Bean.
Okay. I gotta go tend to the doggies.
Oh, did you post it just now?
Yeah. Scroll to the bottom.
I did, and there's nothing there. All right, well, I'm gonna read my own fucking questions. Oh, there it is. Never mind, I found it. Do therapists get good support? I sometimes dip because I feel like I am burdening my therapist with my issues. Oh my God, no, please don't do that. You don't have to do that. I tell my clients all the time, it is not about me. Also, everybody brace yourselves because the dogs are coming in. Please don't knock down the tripod. I tell my clients all the time, it's not about me. I have undergone very specific, very intentional training, thousands of hours of training to prepare myself to hold space for people's really, really difficult shit. We hear all of the heavy, scary, traumatic, awful bullshit that happens in people's lives, and we do that on purpose. I picked this. We chose this on purpose. And so please don't feel like you have to shield your therapist or like protect them. You're not burdening anybody. In the same way that asking a dermatologist to look at a weird mole on your back is not burdening anybody with anything, sharing your mental health bullshit with a therapist is not a burden. If your therapist feels burdened by that, that's maybe a sign that there's some weird boundary stuff going on. And like, that's not your fault as a client. That's on the therapist. Hi, Vienna. But yeah, I mean, you know, dipping and just like ghosting your therapist is something that I have done in my own personal life before I was a therapist. Now that I have to write the notes and like make the attempts at contact, I understand why it's frustrating. It is very common. And I think if you're uncomfortable with your therapist, or, you know, it's not a good fit and you don't like them, that's understandable. But, you know, if you are feeling that way, might be something useful to communicate with them about, because maybe there is some body language or some unconscious facial expressions that are happening that are making you feel that way. Or maybe that's just part of your stuff that you know, want to work on, and that can be useful to talk about. So it's also, I think, helpful sometimes to have a therapist just reassure and reaffirm that, like, no, you are not a bother. No, you are not frustrating me. It feels good to hear that from your therapist. And so if you want to talk about that, I would encourage you to talk about it.
Ready?
Yes.
Awesome. Next one's from Abby. How to be sensitive to a loved one's mental health diagnosis if it's something you don't experience.
I think asking questions to what degree you are allowed to can be useful, but also just exercising this idea of like not knowing. One of the therapeutic approaches that, sorry, the dog was going to hit the tripod. One of the therapeutic approaches that I practice is this idea of like walking into the room with this sense of not knowing. My job here is to be a learner. And to absorb and understand someone else's perspective. So exercising that can be useful, just in the sense that, like, I don't get it. So obviously I don't understand what you're going through. But I am here to listen if you want to tell me about it. You know, and I think also just making space for how all of our subjective versions of reality are very different. If you survey 100 people about whether they like a particular food, you're going to get like a whole bunch of different answers, right? And that doesn't mean that people are wrong. They just have different experiences. The same, you know, approach is relevant with mental health, because mental health and therapy and mental illness are all subjective. It's based on how we perceive reality and like relationships in the world. And so, of course, other people are going to see it differently than you do, but that doesn't mean that it's necessarily you know, like wrong or bad. Libby, baby, can you scoot her off the tripod a little bit? Because she's Leaning it. Thank you, pup. I'm sorry. I know you can clean your butthole like somewhere else. Hey, come here. Go lay down. Can you lay down, please? Thank you. Wow.
All right, ready for the next one?
Yes.
Okay.
Lay down. Lay down, little pup.
I thought this was a super cool question
Mm-hmm.
From Rose. Do you think creativity can be an important outlet for mental illness, maybe even using it in therapy to help clients express themselves? Doesn't someone do like paint therapy or something?
Yes. Art therapy is very much a thing. I don't practice art therapy because I'm not an artist and I don't have any formal training in that. But yes, one of my number one suggestions for clients who are struggling with like emotional constipation is to practice creative outlets, because you would be surprised how intuitively our body and our mind connects with our emotions when we're practicing something artistic. Hey, don't start shit. Because, it's like just sort of connected. I don't really know how to explain it, but it is. So things like painting, drawing, writing, poetry, all of that kind of stuff can be useful in bringing up emotion. Even something like journaling. I know that doesn't sound sort of stereotypically artistic, but journaling is very much a good way to connect to that emotion and to help bring it out. We actually have really interesting research about how using a pen and paper to write about our emotions tends to facilitate that emotional expression much better than writing on a computer does. So journaling with pen and paper can be a useful way to do that too. Music is also another big one. Everybody, I think, has like that song that you turn on when you're like really in a weird place and you just like need to cry, like pushes those buttons for you. So yeah, lean into all of that stuff. It can also be like very, just like useful in a general self-care sense, but definitely for helping the emotional expression part of it.
Okay, hold on.
What?
We're going to start, we're going to do 5 more minutes.
Cool.
And then do 20 minutes of non-therapy related stuff.
Fun.
Okay, let me pick it up.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Also really quick.
Yeah, you want to
well, yeah, I just remembered something. Using creative outlets in therapy is also something that I have done. Again, I don't practice art therapy like formally, but I have had clients do vision boards. I have had clients do like coloring worksheets. I've had clients do different creative outlets in therapy. This is especially useful for people who struggle to verbalize things, because if you're having a hard time putting words to the feeling, sometimes we are able to express that better in a different medium. And so having all that stuff at your disposal can be really, really useful. It's like a pro tip for all of my therapist friends. But also if you're a client, it's okay for you to ask for that. Like, hey, do you have any creative things that we could do? Or like, maybe I could, journal and then read it to you, or, something like that. Don't be afraid to ask for that too.
Okay, you about ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so first of all, if I didn't get to your question, I apologize.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I'm doing my best.
There's a lot of them.
I'm certain this won't be the last one we do.
No. We'll probably keep doing live streams. This was fun.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 questions.
Okay.
We have 5 minutes, okay?
Okay.
All right, so we're just going to go through.
Cool.
All right, Jessica, do you have any strategies for remaining productive, i.e. work goals, etc., while also working through depression and chronic illness?
Take breaks, baby. I know that sounds counterintuitive, but I'm telling you, when we do the thing where we try to power through and just white knuckle our way through our to-do list, it's not helpful to you, especially if you are neurodivergent. So schedule in time to take breaks, even if it's short, even if it's like taking, 60 seconds or 2 minutes or 5 minutes or whatever, to go to the bathroom, go drink some fucking water, go get a snack, watch a couple of TikToks, get up out of your chair and go away from where you are working or studying or trying to be productive. Get the fuck out of there. Go cuddle your pet, go stand in the sunshine, go drink some water, go stimulate your 5 senses and like take breaks, because it will help you.
All right, next up, Kimchi. What's the difference between anxiety and social anxiety?
So anxiety generally is the fear that something bad will happen. It can manifest around a whole bunch of different issues. When we talk about generalized anxiety disorder, typically that's like the overarching fear that something bad is going to happen, or that, there is something dangerous or scary or like unfortunate that could take place. Social anxiety is specifically anxiety and fear around social interaction, and especially it tends to center on the judgment of other people and fear of other people judging you or hating you or disliking you or like, thinking that you're embarrassing and not telling you, like all of that kind of stuff.
All right, awesome. From Lauren. In your opinion, how can we minimize harm done to marginalized groups as therapists, since healthcare is often biased against minorities? Agreed.
Fucking be aware of that shit. And this is imperfect, because like as a half white, half minority person, I have had interesting experiences on like both sides of the spectrum here. But as a person who presents as a white person and very much has white privilege, we have to be aware of the fact that we're bringing that into the room and that we are going to do it wrong. We are actively going to fuck it up. We're going to do it wrong. And it's important for us to be able to learn from that and to hold space for when people of color, other people in marginalized groups and like minorities call us out for that shit. And also pay people for their fucking emotional labor. Hire somebody for your workplace who is part of a marginalized group to do a training. Spend the money on the books and the tools and the trainings and the techniques, and like outsource your training and the learning that you're wanting to do actually from the marginalized group that you're trying to learn from.
All right, from Root Groves. When getting a mental health diagnosis, is one from a therapist considered as equal to that from a doctor? I worry because my eating disorder is not diagnosed by a doctor, is not as serious. Is there a difference?
It depends. Personally, just because it's me, I think a diagnosis from a mental health professional probably carries more weight than from a doctor because they don't have as much specific training in diagnosing mental disorders as we do. However, if you're walking into a room with heavy medical bias, then they might not take you as seriously. That said, that does not mean that your disorder is invalid or that you are making it up or that you are being hyperbolic or that you're being a baby. That's not true. That's fucked up. If you have a clinical diagnosis on file with somebody, it's a real diagnosis. It's valid. It's totally, real. And you are allowed to advocate for yourself, but also to request and demand that you get the appropriate services and resources that you are entitled to.
All right, last one from your girl, Nick.
Okay.
Is it important to have an understanding of mental disorders, stuff like that, if my work revolves around interviewing criminals and such?
Yes.
Last question, mental health related.
Absolutely, yes. This is an area that I don't have a lot of personal experience with because I've never worked with incarcerated persons before. A friend of mine does, and she's talked about how nuanced that whole situation is. But I think it's important to be mindful of because we know in the United States, a large proportion of people who are incarcerated are people of color, are people from marginalized groups who, statistically speaking, don't have the same access to the appropriate healthcare and mental health care services that white folks do. And so it's not uncommon for someone to have an undiagnosed mental illness or, mental health issue. Sorry, the dog. Puppy, come here. Come here. Sit. Come here. Around. Well, that was the wrong dog, but okay. But yes, it's very important to be mindful of that. If you're not like a social worker or a mental health professional in that environment, it can be hard to get people to take you seriously. That doesn't mean that we can't be mindful of that and kind of notice those signs and symptoms though, and kind of keep that in the back of our mind when we talk about, like evaluating a person's behavior, their treatment or, their treatment plan and stuff like that. I hope that answers your question.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Cool. Mm-hmm. All right. You want to go through the chat yourself, or you want me to give you
You pick.
Okay. Well, first off, everyone pretty much wants the paintings explained.
Okay.
I think if you've made it this far in the live stream, I think you definitely deserve to know about all the paintings.
Okay.
Don't tell your friends.
Let's talk about the paintings. The paintings are something that I started as like part of my journey in recovering or like getting away from perfectionism. I am very much a person who is not good at not being good at things. So I, had this perspective that like, if I'm not going to be amazing at it, or I'm not going to win, then I don't want to fucking do it. I'm not going to put myself out there. That's uncomfy. I don't want to do that. So one of the things that I started doing to try and get away from that was to do things bad on purpose. So I started making shitty paintings. I just really find the activity of painting to be incredibly soothing. I don't know why. It's just like a sensory thing. Like it's exciting, like relaxing to me, I guess. So I knew that I wanted to paint, and I knew that I think like quotes and stuff are really funny. At the time that I started doing this, I was listening to My Favorite Murder a lot. I was watching a lot of Jenna and Julian's content. And so those were some of the first ones that I made. Is this Jenna Marbles, Oh Hell Yeah. This Wheat Woo up here. Huh?
There's an R.I.P. Jenna.
I know. God, I miss Jenna Marbles. But yeah, and then I just started making them more as a self-care thing. And so they're all kind of like fandom related. This one up here, this I'm Too Spooky, that's my new favorite. It's a quote from Schitt's Creek where Moira Rose is talking about taking nudes. And I thought this shit was so funny. So I made a thing out of it.
If you want to know, yeah, Wheat Woo.
Yeah,
was one.
This is The Good Place. This Business Bobati, you can't see it because of the mic. That's from The Office. That's when Creed was manager for a day. And makes everybody make up stupid fucking acronyms. Let's see. This is a 21 Pilots song lyric. This is a TikTok joke.
Oh, put a bird on it. No, everyone wants to know.
Put a bird on it. It's from Portlandia. It's a skit from Portlandia that they did that was just so fun. I don't know why that made my husband and I laugh so much, but we shit our pants laughing at that skit, and we said that to each other like over and over and over and over and over again. Portlandia is really funny. If you haven't watched it, you should watch it. It's like such a good end of the day show because it's short, it's easy, it's light, it's funny. The dog is being a nuisance. But yeah.
Okay. What else do we got? Podcasts, audiobooks, opinions from Christina.
Okay.
What do you got? Oh, and something that made you laugh this week. I love that question.
Probably
a TikTok.
Yeah, something that made me laugh this week is that TikTok audio of a little kid who sent his mom like an emoji and he said, "Order me pizza." Little shark face. My husband and I have been saying that to each other for like 2 weeks straight. And now when he leaves for work, I go, "Thank you. I love you." So that makes me laugh all the time. Audiobooks, honestly, like this is so bad. I know that I would like audiobooks and I would listen to them a lot. Honest to God, I just don't want to give Amazon any more of my fucking money. I don't want to pay for Audible. I don't want to do it. Because I also have a tendency to be the phase person where I will listen to audiobooks. Like I'll probably go all in for like 2 weeks and then forget that I have an Audible subscription for like the next 15 months and just pay for it every month like a goon. So not going to do that. But I do really like podcasts because those are free.
What are some of your favorite podcasts?
I really like Brene Brown's podcast.
Something for Brene.
I really like Brene Brown. I really like listening to Last Podcast on the Left with my husband. We usually listen to that in the car anytime we have a road trip. RIP road trips. We haven't done one of those in ages.
Have you watched Mindhunter? Have we?
Have we watched Mindhunter? Yes. No, I love that show. I am very much a true crime person, and I have kind of evangelized my husband into true crime. So we watch, those little like documentaries and shows and stuff together. What else? Podcasts. Last Podcast on the Left. I like a lot. Reply All. Oh, if you guys aren't listening to Reply All, please go listen to it. It is such an underrated podcast. It's just kooky, man. Like the podcast is just weird, and I just really like it. It's like a nice little, like palate cleanser, I guess.
Someone asked, have you ever done a tarot reading? Where are your cards?
My tarot cards are actually in this cabinet over here. I love reading tarot. I'm awful at it. I actually did a tarot reading with my best friend Jax, and it made no sense. And we basically just went round and round trying to force a reason to force it to make sense. I think tarot is really fun, and I really enjoy it. But I am very much still working on honing my intuitive nature. And I still have to look up all of the definitions for the cards and like, what does this card mean? So yeah, it's a fun hobby.
Apparently you can rent audiobooks through your county library.
Excuse?
And I guess they're on YouTube too.
Wait, so if you rent a book from your librrow though, is it like a tape? Because if it's a tape, then that's not going to work for me. I need it to work in my car.
I mean, we do live in the 21st.
Well, I don't know. Because there's a store in Tucson called Bookman's that's like a used bookstore that they sell like the tapes. They have like Harry Potter on tape. And like, that's cool, I guess, if, you have one of those. But I don't have the technology to make that happen. Oh, that's so smart. Thank you. I'll look into that.
We said something that made you laugh.
Mm-hmm. Somebody said I freaking knew it. What did you know? Small Town Murder.
Fantasy books to escape from the world. Mine are Shadowhunter books by Cassandra Clare.
I did really like the Hunger Games Once Upon a Time. I found this book when I was doing my internship at a high school that was called Lost Without a Trace or Gone Without a Trace. That like the dust jacket is missing. It's very clearly an old book, but it was kind of like spooky and mysterious. So I stole it out of the staff break room, and I have been meaning to read that. So maybe I should read that. But yeah, I used to love reading, and I don't do it as much anymore because I'm just like a busy lady. But yeah, if I can rent some audiobooks from the library, I'm about to get on that train.
Favorite Netflix show?
Oh boy.
Oh, did you want to show the doggies? I don't know how you want to do it.
I'll probably just move the mic and then we'll I can have you hold the tripod and I'll let them mob me. Lord. What was the question? I'm sorry.
Favorite Netflix show?
Favorite Netflix show. We really are into Survivor lately. Not that that's on Netflix, that's on Hulu. But my husband and I have been gradually making our way through the old seasons of Survivor. Really love Schitt's Creek. I loved Schitt's Creek. I'm so sad that it's over. What else on Netflix? Like Netflix originals. We really like Stranger Things. I'm trying to think what else. Honestly, we don't really watch a lot of TV anymore. Like we watch Survivor at the end of the night and that's it.
They asked Big Mouth.
Oh, yes. Oh my God. Big Mouth is so funny.
Except those 2 episodes.
There was 2 episodes. Yes. Of the most recent season that gave me weird feelings. Like I had to watch cartoons afterwards because they just like really brought me down, man. Like the space episode. What was that?
Food?
That's impossible. I don't know that I have one. Like I love pizza. I love sushi. I love ice cream. But like also I could get down with pasta. Big fan of garlic bread. Love hummus. Big fan of beets. So cheese, anything with cheese on it. Like brie is my favorite. Baked brie. Fuck me up. I could eat a whole wheel of baked brie by myself. So yeah.
Any Phoenix, Tucson recommendations? Where's fun?
Ooh, there's a place. If you like ramen, there's a place in Tucson called Kiwami that is so good. Oh my God, it's so good. Let me think. In Phoenix, there is a place called Chibo. Is it Chibo Pizza? Oh, and Pizza People Pub. Ooh, Pizza People Pub in Phoenix is so good. My husband and I had mac and cheese there after we got married. And it's one of my favorite places in the whole world. And I'm so sad that I don't live in Phoenix and that we're in the middle of a pandemic because I can't go out and eat because I'm being responsible.
Favorite flavor of ice cream?
Rocky Road and or coffee or like the mocha almond fudge, like the Tillamook mocha almond fudge. I will eat a whole half gallon of that by myself. It's so good.
I didn't mean to ask this one earlier. They just say, have you ever heard of Sanders Sides or Cartoon Therapy, their YouTube series?
Oh, no.
Sanders?
No, I have not. I have seen so many. Yeah, I've seen so many recommendations for different channels. I saw that you guys asked for School of Life, for Cinema Therapy. There was another cartoon one that I wrote down that I haven't looked at yet. The Max and Mary movie, I think. I keep a running list. I have a list on my phone of all of your guys' suggestions. I pour through the comments and look for them. So I will definitely do my best to react to those. Although maybe we should be careful with the react videos. Like y'all are really trying to get me in trouble here. If the Psych2Go video is any indication.
Shamrock shakes, yay or nay?
Absolutely yes. However, I prefer to make them at home because they're cheaper. I mean, they're really good. Just like mint ice cream, basically.
Where do you want to travel when we're all finally allowed outside again?
Europe.
But also any good road trip destinations?
My husband and I took a road trip around the state of Arizona as our congratulations, you got your master's degree, and also we got married trip, and that was really fun. What?
No, they just said, Abby said I need the part 2 of those crazy Christian chicks. Well,
it's coming tomorrow as a fun behind the scenes for all of you who watched this far into the live stream. Girl Defined part 2 is going up tomorrow, so stay tuned. I'm very excited about that. Yeah, oh God, yeah. There's some quotes I really should make t-shirts out of. I saw somebody asked for a favorite sushi roll. I think probably a Vegas roll. I'm just a sucker for deep fried sushi. It's so good. Anything with cream cheese and avocado on it, I'm on board.
If we're ever in the UK, they cannot recommend Bristol. I want to hit every damn city.
Yes, truly. Our original plan was to take like a heinously long Europe vacation because I went to Europe when I was younger. I went on like one of those ambassador trips when I was in middle school, and I just loved it. And my husband and I wanted to go and take like, I don't know, like probably a month and like do the whole thing. But then, we're in the middle of a panicata, so we kind of have to wait.
Someone says, thoughts on snakes as sensory pets. They have one, a ball python. Tell Henry we said hi. And they said it feels great and calm. It's probably like a fidget toy. I mean, obviously alive.
Interesting. Yeah.
I never would have thought of that.
That's actually really smart and very interesting. I feel like that is both unique, but also makes a lot of sense.
People also like your cute. Katie likes your cute, colorful tops.
Oh, thanks.
Actually, is that one of the new ones? Or
no, this one I bought from Shein like forever ago. I really need to buy new clothes. I did just recently sign up for Stitch Fix, and so we're kind of exploring whether that's useful for fat people or not.
Do you want to say? I mean, we're getting pretty close here.
Yeah, I think we're probably ready to.
Oh, there's lots of people watching from Ireland, apparently.
Oh, that's fun. Hi. Thanks for. I was going to say it has to be so late there. Thank you guys for staying up late. That's so nice. It's like dusk here. It's like we're getting ready to have sunset here.
We should have a competition for who can come up with the best fixing instead of pandemic. I got Dr. Pimple Popper. Where's another one? But yeah. Scotland here too. Oh my goodness.
Wow. That's so fun. I'm so glad that you guys are watching from different places.
Let people go to sleep.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move the mic out of the way and then we will let the dogs. Now, of course, now they're quiet.
Calm.
Yeah.
I mean, you can
hold on to that.
Oh yeah, just call them up over there.
Come here. Do you guys want to say hi? Hello, come here.
No, over there.
That's Papa. Come here. Hi. Come here. Come here. Hello. Can you say hello? Hello. Hi, baby. Kiss it. No. Don't hump her. Hi. Can you kiss it? No. No kisses from you.
They're ready for dinner. It's dinner. It's definitely dinner time.
Come here. Come here. Hi, Boo Bear. Yes, hello. Can you say hi? Can you say hello, friends? She said, give me food, Mom. Hi.
Holy cow, some people watching from.
Those are our dogs. They are ready for dinner. Thank you guys seriously so much for watching. This has been so fun. I obviously was very nervous when we first started because I've never done this before, but I really enjoyed this. I would love to do this more. I was telling my husband today, I think we're going to do this on a semi-regular basis as we hit channel milestones. So yeah, this was super fun. I loved doing this. Thank you guys for being here. I appreciate you all endlessly. And thank you for subscribing to the channel and like blowing my shit up. Truly, like when I started the channel, I just wanted to encourage people to go to therapy and like learn a little bit more about mental health. And like y'all are out here starting a mental health revolution with me. And I just like am blown away. I don't want to cry on stream because that's so cringy, but like seriously, thank you guys, because like the comments and like DMs and stuff that I've seen from people being like, you inspired me to go to therapy, like blows my mind. It makes my heart so full and just like, thank you. So we are going to go feed our poor dogs dinner and let y'all go to sleep. So yeah, I will see you guys soon. My video that goes live tomorrow is Girl Defined Part 2 at 10 a.m. So get your, rant selves ready because it's going to be very fun. So yeah, I'll see you guys soon. Thanks for coming. Okay, bye. I just pressed the button. Oh, there it goes.
No.